I want to thank you, so many of you, for your prayers when we were in Israel. I didn't have much cell service on my phone, the little I have. The last thing on my mind was social media. But when we asked for prayer, we received prayer. And I'm telling you, your prayers made a difference. We felt it. We needed it. It sustained us. And so as part of my home away from home, I want to thank you on behalf of my family for the way that you stood in the gap for us as a family. And I'm so happy I get to be here with you today. And I get to open the word with you today. And I know you've just had a season where you've done church at the movies, but it's time to put your popcorn away. There is no movie today. There is no Hollywood actor going to help me with this message. There's just me, myself, and Jesus. And that's going to be plenty enough for what God's going to speak to us about. But I am excited today, because I have been entrusted with the privilege of the starting of a brand new series in the church that we're going to do over the next few weeks. This series is going to be entitled Dear Church. The series is going to have us take a look at the book of Revelation. And before you get a little overwhelmed and too excited, we're going to begin at the beginning of Revelation, because at the beginning of Revelation, we find there are some letters that are written to the church. Dear Church. Revelation begins by us telling us that John is exiled on the Isle of Patmos. The Isle of Patmos was a place, a remote place, where he had been placed. John, who was going around proclaiming the name of Jesus, speaking of the good news of the gospel. John was an irritation to those that hated the name of Jesus, and they tried to persecute him, and they tried to kill him. And when they couldn't persecute him enough, and when they couldn't kill him, they just decided to be done with him and sent him to Patmos. He was exiled out there, and the reason why they couldn't be done with him is because God had not done with him. There was yet more for him to do. And right there at the Isle of Patmos, we read in the book of Revelation that God opens the heavens and reveals to John from an open heaven the things that we read in this book. And the book begins by God prioritizing, John, I need you to pick up a scroll, and I need you to begin to write. I'm going to ask you to write some letters for me. I want you to write to 7 churches, and I'm going to tell you the churches. And over this next few weeks, we're going to read the letters that went to those 7 churches. You might say, well, what relevance do those letters have to us, Bayside Church, today? I'll tell you, they have every amount of relevance now as they did back then. These letters are included because these letters are valid, and these letters are necessary to the church today as much as they were to the church back then. The churches that God asked John to send a letter to were churches that had a lot of influence, churches that had a wide breadth of influence to take the gospel to many different places. Churches were connected. And the first church that I get to talk to you from is the church of Ephesus. Ephesus was a place that was known for high intellect. It was a place that was renowned for having philosophers and deep thinkers. And it was a place where there was a lot of extremely wealthy people and successful people. Ephesus was known as a center of brilliance, and therefore it had a lot of responsibility when it came to the role of the church. The church in Ephesus was started by the Apostle Paul and had an amazing caliber of leaders that spoke into it, from Timothy to Priscilla and Aquila. It had a quite daunting set of attendees that went to that church, John himself being one of them, but also Jesus's mother went to this church. I don't know whether I would be wanting to preach at that church. You know, you're preaching up here the best you can, and Jesus' mama is on the second row going, I don't think that's very good. My son could do better. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not sure I would want to be preaching to Jesus' mama, but that was the case at the church of Ephesus. So God wants John to write them a letter, dear church. It's kind of like God saying, I want to send a report card to 7 of my churches that have huge influence and therefore huge responsibility. Do you remember back in the day when you used to get a report card from school before technology got in the way, when someone thought it was a really good idea for the teacher to write a report on a piece of paper, put it in the hand of the student, and expect the student to deliver that report to their parents? Telling you, a lot of report cards never made it home. My poor children live in the age of technology, and now the report card arrives on my cell phone without any permission from them being given. But back in the day, it was a handwritten report card, and it had to be delivered. And the reason why the teacher would write the report card was because the teacher had a perspective of that student that the parent did not. I know you think at school this happens, but let me tell you what really happens. I know you think your child is awesome, but let me just tell you some areas where they need a little improvement. It's almost like God saying, hey, I'm the great teacher in heaven, and I'm looking down on my students, my disciples, my church, and there's a few things I'd like to say to you in my report. And I need you to read it because there's some things you're doing great, but there's some things I need you to listen to me about and do better. The next few weeks, we're going to read those report cards. And this is the first one. So he writes to the church in Ephesus, and it begins in Revelation 2. He describes these churches in the vision that he gives John as the 7 golden lampstands. That's the 7 churches who are about to receive these letters. And so it says, these are the words of him who holds the 7 stars in his right hand and walks among the 7 golden lampstands. And this is the report card now to the church of Ephesus. Dear church, I know your deeds, your hard work, your perseverance. I know that you cannot tolerate wicked people, that you have tested those who claim to be apostles but are not, and have found them false. You have persevered and have endured hardships for my name, and I have not grown weary. So far, so good. Saying to the church, hey, you're doing good in these areas. You are working hard, and you are persevering, and you're not even growing weary in that perseverance. I want to commend you for that. But just like a report card that you receive from school, you're just waiting for the but. In verse 4, we get the but. We get the thing that God says, this is great, but I need to talk to you actually about this. Yet I hold this against you. You have forsaken the love you had at first. God wants to let the church know, I see everything you're doing, but I want to talk to you not about your doing, but about your being. I want you to know, as impressed as I am with your hard work, there's something that is missing, and without this, your works don't mean anything. You have forsaken your first love. Forsaken means to abandon, to desert, to forget, to walk away from. And God's trying to tell the church, I don't want your deeds without your devotion. I don't want your attendance without your affection. I don't want your zeal without your love and passion. You have drifted far from your first love. And just as God sent that letter to the church back then, I believe that God wants us, the church, right now to read the same letters and ask ourselves the same questions. God, is this something that I would be guilty of? God, in all my doing, have I forgotten that you are concerned with my being? God, in all of the things that I think are important, have I forgot the thing that is the most vital? Have I drifted, God? Have I forsaken, God? My first love. Do you not remember what it was like when you first met Jesus? Do you not remember when you realized, amazing grace, how sweet the sound that would save a wretch like me? Do you not remember when you were so down in that pit of your own sin and your own mud and your own mire, and the goodness of God lifted you up and cleaned you off and let you have a brand new start? Do you not remember how grateful you were when you realized that God was going to allow you to be saved by his grace and every day followed by his mercy? Do you not remember when you first experienced his presence, how you were hungry and desperate to never leave him and never be without him? Do you not remember when you first fell in love with him, how you told everybody about him? And God's saying to the church, we have a problem. Now you forget to tell anybody about me. Now I'm not your first thought. I often am your last thought. I've gone from being your first love to getting your leftover love. Nobody wants leftovers, especially not in my house. There's no good leftovers in my house. If I am late to the dinner table because I got caught on a call and I get to the dinner table late, I'll tell you right now, there is nothing worth eating left over, because I have a 17-year-old, 6'2" son who works in the gym every single morning and evening. And when food goes on that table, it is gone before anybody has time to question what was on the table. So if I am late, the leftovers are not even worth me considering consuming, because he's taken everything he feels he needs to build the muscle, everything he feels he needs to fulfill the appetite. And so the leftovers are picked over and they are stale and they are cold. And I feel like God's saying in this letter to the church there, but to the church now, I used to get you first, but now I get you leftover. I get what's left over after your job and after the children and after all of the things that you've committed to. I get the energy that's left over after everybody's had your energy. I get the time that is left over after everybody else has had your time. But I used to be first. And as God is writing this letter through John to the church, as he's challenging something that I believe we all need to be challenged in, because we are all guilty of this. Life is busy, life gets full, and we all can drift from this first place. We understand it in the natural. All you have been in here married for a number of years, hello. When you first fell in love, you telling me your behavior is the same now as it was then? If so, I want it validating by the other person. It takes work to keep something your first love. It takes effort to keep something your first love. It takes intentionality to keep something as your first love. And that is what this letter is all about. But because God is a good teacher, he doesn't just reprimand them and he doesn't just shake a finger at them. He says, this is where you're doing good, this is where we can do better, and this is how we fix it. This letter has the explanation for how we all today can respond to God if we feel that this is guilty in our own lives. He's saying, don't worry, I have a way to fix it. And so the letter goes on, yet I hold this against you. You've forsaken the love you had at first. Verse 5, so I want you to do a few things. Number one, I want you to consider how far you've fallen. In other words, I want you to assess where I am. Am I first? Am I second? Am I 100th? I want you to see how far you've drifted from me being first. Consider how far you've fallen. And then, secondly, then all you have to do is repent. Say sorry. Ask for my forgiveness, and then turn around and go back in the right direction to making me first. And then it says this, and then after you repented, do the things you did at first. Remember the things you did when you first fell in love with me. Remember the things that you used to do that made me your first love. Do those things all over again. And so I want, just in the last few moments of my time with you today, to give you 3 areas to work on to keep him as your first love. 3 areas that I think if we assess them, you'll be able to see whether he's still first or whether he's fallen back to another area of your life further down the priority list. I think if something is your first love, number 1, it's where you go first. Number 2, and I'll explain this in a moment, it's where you get first. And number 3, it's where you give first. I want to take a minute and look at each of those things so we can assess, just like the church here was told to assess, whether or not we've fallen away from these things being true of our lives. So let's consider first. Where do you go first? You ever seen those videos on social media where they have like a couple and then they have the dog that the couple own? Say the dog's called Bruce. And the couple take a few steps back and one steps on the left and one stands on the right. And then at the same time, they begin to shout the dog's name. Bruce, come on, Bruce, come on, Bruce. And the dog's confused and its tail's wagging and it's all excited. And eventually it takes off and they're looking to see where does the dog go first, because where he goes first is who he loves the most. Life is like that. Imagine your life. It's like everything is come to me first. Your job, your children, your marriage, your commitments, your career, your finance, everything's asking for your attention. And God's like, in all of those voices, I'm watching where you go first. Where you go first is where you first love. Your devotion is choosing your direction. I remember when I first fell in love with my husband, Steve. We've been together 31 years. And I remember when I first fell in love with the blonde hair, blue-eyed rock drummer. I remember his accent, his American accent, and the way he would say words that made no sense. And I thought it was cute. And I remember this combination of this English and American falling in love. And I remember when I fell in love with Steve, all I wanted to do was go first to Steve. I wanted to spend time with Steve. I wanted to be around Steve. I wanted to go to him with my thoughts. I wanted to go to him with my dreams. I wanted to go to him with the things that were hurtful. And I wanted to go to him with the things that made me happy. I wanted to share it with him first because he was my first love. God's saying, where do you go first when you're hurting? Do you go to me or do you go to the bar? Where do you go first when you're betrayed? Do you go to me or do you go to your addiction? Where do you go first when you're successful? Do you go celebrate with your friends or do you go to me and say thank you? Where do you go first? Because where you're going first is directing the path that you go on. That's why the Bible tells us in Matthew 22, that first commandment, love God first. With all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul. Put him first. Go to him first. Take all your worries to him first. All your anxiety to him first. Some of you are taking your anxiety to your friend on Facebook. That's why you're more anxious than you were before you took it there. They're multiplying it. They're not subtracting it because they're not God. But when you love him first, you go to him first. And if you go to God first, you'll find you don't go to as many other people as you used to do. Because you already got your peace and you already got your answer and you already got what you needed because you went to the right place first. Where do you go first? Tells you what you love first. Where do you go first to share those things that are deep on the inside of you? Where do you go first to say, this is too hard for me to carry? Today, maybe you need to assess how far you've fallen from him being the first place that you would go. Some of you used to wake up in the morning. You would first go into the presence of God. It's like God saying, I miss you. I miss you. You used to go and spend time with me. You used to sit and you used to talk to me. You used to share your dreams and your heart with me. I miss you. You're like, God, you miss me? You have so many kids. How can you possibly miss me? Well, if you had 5 kids and one was lost, you'd still miss the one that was lost. You wouldn't go, well, I've got 4, it's fine. God thinks exactly the same way. He knows the hairs on your head. He knows everything about you. He is so in love with you. So when you put him last, he misses you. Some of you used to go to him with your thanksgiving. When any little thing happened in your life, you'd be like running first to say, God, thank you. I know this comes from you. I know this blessing is from you. I want to acknowledge you. I want to tell you thank you, God. But now you go to everyone else. Where do you go first? What you love first will determine where you go first. And if that is not where you're going first, it's time to repent and go back. Where do you get first? See, when you put someone in the first place, when you love someone first, that's where you're going to get your affirmation from. You're going to get your value from. You're going to get your worth from. You're going to get your security from the one that you love first, because when we love something first, we give it our vulnerability, which is why it's dangerous to give anything your first love that is not Christ, because then your security is in something that is not steadfast, that is not true. And many of us have got our affirmation from other people. We've got our value from other people's opinion. We've got our worth from our job. We've gone and got it from something that could never tell you who you are. You are made in the image of God. So if you need to know your value and worth, you got to go first to God and get first from God your identity, your security, who you are, who you're called to be. You've got to get in the presence of God and let him define you. Some of you are so confused because you're trying to get from everybody else what God wants to give you first. Some of you single people in here, can I help you? Don't date until you've got from God first who you are and whose you are. Don't allow a boy or a girl to be the place where you get your validation or your approval or your security from, because when they decide to not give it to you anymore, you'll be all the way back in the place of insecurity. You got to go and get it from God first. He knows your worth. He knows your value, not your job, not your career, not your paycheck. Some of you men in here, men of God in here, stop looking to your paycheck or your salary or your job to get your worth or your value for where you sit in society. None of that matters in the eyes of God. Go to him first and get it from him first, and you'll find security. Wow, when I was first in love with Steve, I wanted to hear everything he thought about me. I want to get his opinion on my outfit. I want to get his words of affirmation, because I was in love. I did crazy things when I fell in love with my husband. I mean, I was in England. He was in America. We had an ocean between us, okay? I'm at a Bible camp after we just started dating. And I'm at this Bible camp. And when I say Bible camp, in England, it's actually a camp, y'all, right? It's not like... doesn't have like a roof on the thing you stay in and a restroom in your place where you're camping. That's not camping. It's like a tent and canvas and rain leaking in, and you're on a blow-up bed and there's a bathroom that's a hole in the ground. That's the kind of camping we do in England, okay? Which is why I hate camping. And so we were camping on a church camp, and I've just fallen in love with this man in America, and he's so awesome. And I'm telling everybody about him. Everyone's sick of hearing his name and like, enough already. But I need to talk to him because I need to get my affirmation from him. I need to hear his voice. I need to hear him say things nice to me. And I don't care about y'all anymore. I just want to be with him. And there's a time difference, but that doesn't matter because I'm in love. So I literally was at this campground. This shows you my age now. I'm giving away my age. Before cell phones, people, I'm that old. Before cell phones, okay, when you had to have a landline. Well, there's no landlines at the campground. There's just a payphone. You remember those? You put coins in and you dial and you like push the buttons and then you get on. Well, I'm having to go into a payphone to try and call internationally. That's expensive. From England, I have to work out the time zone, but I don't care because I'm in love. And so I get my sleeping bag. It's 3 a.m. in the morning. It's raining in England, and I'm sat on the floor in my sleeping bag. I've borrowed, begged, and stolen coins from all of my friends to put in the phone. And I'm like, just want to hear his voice. And the night security are coming around with torch like, what are you doing? I'm like, leave me alone. It's Steve. I want to hear his voice. I want him to say how amazing I am. I'm in love. And we laugh. But some of you used to be like that with God. I don't care what it takes. I want to be in his presence. I don't care who thinks I'm a fool. I want to worship with all my heart before him. I don't care who sees my tears roll on my fact that I'm on my knees. I don't care if I look stupid or people call me religious. I don't care if my friends don't stand when I stand for the things I believe. I'm in love with the one who defines me. And I'm going to do whatever it takes to let him know you're my first love. You're my first love. When you get your affirmation from your first love, you know who you are, which is why when David, who was just a kid, left a hillside, he looked at Goliath. He's like, I don't care what you say. I already got my affirmation this morning. I was up on the hill with my first love. I was singing my love songs to him. I was strumming my guitar and I was in his presence. And you're just a big bully. And I know who I am because I've been with the one who I loved first. And so Goliath was no bother to him because he knew who he was. So many of you are stumbling when Goliath situations happen, but if you get back to your first love and figure out who he says you are, you would not stumble and you would not fall. Your first love is where you go first. Your first love is where you get first. Your sense of value, your sense of approval, your sense of affirmation, your sense of security. And your first love, it's where you give first. Remember when you fell in love? How money just seemed to leave your pockets? No matter what she needed, no matter what it took, no matter how fancy the dinner, no matter the flower cost, no matter, money just left me. When I fell in love, I'm like, I'll buy an airplane ticket and I'll fly to America to see you because I just need to be with you. It was like that. I remember when Steve came to England and he's trying to impress my family and he realizes he's this American and he's kind of, from the redneck territory, and he's like, doesn't really fit in with the English family, and he's struggling with the language and all of those things, and y'alls and all of that's not really working, and he's like, how do I impress this girl? How do I win her heart? And he realizes, wow, she has 3 sisters. If I get the 3 sisters on side, this is good to go. And so he decides that he is gonna be generous to my sisters. Well, they did not know, as I did know, that Steve basically was a drummer, a poor drummer, and he was working as a youth pastor. He'd given up his career in music, which paid him well to serve Jesus, and now he was a youth pastor and he was paid $70 a month. Anybody feel called to ministry? That's when you know it's your first love. So on that grand budget of $70 a month, he foolishly, because he's in love, invites my sisters for dinner. Lets them pick the restaurant. Doesn't tell them he doesn't have much money. Just says, order what you want. And boy, did they. They ordered steak and they ordered sides and they ordered desserts. And then they ordered milkshakes that cost an arm and a leg. And I watched him at that table order a glass of water. For in his mind, he was adding up, I think I will be washing the dishes at the end of this meal. He didn't tell me for another 6 months that for 3 weeks he had no food because my sisters had eaten everything that his budget would allow him to eat for 3 weeks. But when you're in love, whatever it costs, whatever it costs. When did you become stingy with your Savior? You used to be so generous. You used to sing without a reason to sing. You used to give without anybody trying to convince you to give. Pastor Bernard got up a moment ago and talked about us giving our tithes at the first of the month. You think he's doing that because God needs your money? God doesn't need your money. He's telling you, look, where you love first is where you give first. That's why in Proverbs 3 verse 9, it tells us, honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of your crops, And then your barns will be filled to overflowing, and your vats will brim over with new wine. God is trying to let you see a principle, because it tells in Matthew, where your treasure is, there your heart is also. And where you give tells me where you love. If you give first to the golf club, then you love golf first. If you give first to your vacations, then you love your vacations first. And I'm not saying any of those things are wrong, but when God is on the last of the list, you're saying, God, I love you, but you know what? You get my leftovers. Oh, but by the way, God, I'd like you to protect me. I'd like you to heal me. I'd like you to bless me. I'd like you to cover me. I'd like you to forgive me. I'd like you to cleanse me. I'd like you to restore me. But God, you get my leftover tip. When did we move God down the list of being first? What you love the most is where you give the most. What you love the most is where you invest the most. You love the most, you can't help but give your worship. You can't help but give your praise. I was reminded in the worship just earlier, made me kind of tearful, of an old couple. I've been in the same church all my life, and this old couple have been in the church since I was a baby. Their names were John and Hetty Cryer. It was just a church in England that I grew up in, and sweet, sweet couple. But there was kind of a standing joke, because John, he wasn't a great singer, but he had a big voice. And John, doesn't matter where he was sat in the auditorium, if you left a gap in the service, John would just start singing all by himself. And the song he would sing was the one that Franklin sang earlier. He just started, oh, how he loves you. And he had a wobble. And me. And you were like, there goes John. Somebody didn't speed up the service. Someone left a gap. Like literally every single service, you'd see the singers nervous. Quick, sing. John's going to take us down the same road again. But you know, it was just his way. He just couldn't help himself. A man that had lived a long life and seen a lot of stuff. He was just still in love with his Savior. He just wanted him to know, I see you and I love you, God. Know how you've loved me. I can't keep it in. So if there's a gap, I'm going to fill it with praise to you. If there's a gap, I'm going to say how grateful I am for you. Bible says in Exodus 34 verse 14 that our God is a jealous God. Do not worship any other God, for the Lord whose name is jealous is a jealous God. Isaiah 42 verse 8 says, I am the Lord, that is my name, and I will not share my glory to another or my praise to idols. We serve a God who is jealous for your worship. Do you worship your job, or do you worship your God? Do you worship your money, or do you worship the giver of life? Do you worship your gift, or do you worship the giver of the gift? Is he your first love? And this letter to the church is saying, dear church, you're doing a lot of things well, but I miss you. I miss your first attention in the morning. I miss your first thanks. I miss your first offering. I miss your first sharing of the dream. I miss you. And just like it was relevant back then, I believe it's even more relevant right now. We live in a time when we're so distracted. We live in a time when there's so many things that want our attention, our finances, our time. And so this letter is a challenge to all of us. To repent and to go back. To repent and to get back. To repent and to give back. For if he's where you first go, then he truly is the way. If he's where you first get your affirmation, then he truly is the truth. And if he's where you first give, then he truly is the life. And he wants to be all those things to you, but he can't be if he's not first. So today, hear this letter, not as a shaking finger of heaven, but as the loving arms of the teacher who sees the students and says, you're doing great, but don't forsake. Don't forsake your first love. All across the house, I want us to stand to our feet. And I just want to give you a moment, because some of you need one, to acknowledge, I hear you, God. I know what that means for me. Some of you have just drifted a little, and today's just pulling you right the way back in. But some of you have drifted for a long time, and it's really hard to see how to get back. It just starts with, I'm sorry. And repent and begin to do the things you did at first. Open your Bible. Open your mouth. Plant your seed. Make him first. So just close your eyes all across the room. God, you see us all just standing in your presence. We've sang all morning of your great love. And God, we're sorry where we've given you leftover love. So often, God, it's not because we did it intentionally, it's because we did it accidentally. God, what hurts your heart hurts our hearts. So God, we receive this letter today as if you'd written it to us as our individual report card. And we accept the challenge of assessing how far we've fallen and repenting and getting back to do the things we did at first. I pray this week it will be a week of giving you our first attention, giving you our first thanks, giving you our first praise, giving you our first seed. And as eyes are closed this morning, maybe there's some in the room, and for you, you just need to make a deliberate decision today to put him first. Maybe he is not your Lord and Savior. Maybe you've never given him that first seat in your life, and today you need to. Nothing else will find its right place till he is first. Maybe you're in here and you're like a prodigal. You've drifted from him being first. You feel so far away from him, but today he's already running towards you, and you just got to make a decision and acknowledge, I want to put you first again. If that's you today, as eyes are closed, you're saying, that's me. Just lift your hand and say, I need to put God first. I need to come back to him. I need to get my life right with him. I need forgiveness today. I need help today. He sees that response moment. He's already running towards you because that's how much he loves you. He loves you so much. He said, I've got to first send to them my son. He loves you so much that he was the first one to give. He loves you so much, he was the first one to sacrifice. So just put your hand on your heart. God, for everyone that just responded in this moment, I pray they would put you first. God, I pray they'd receive your love right now and your forgiveness right now. And in that place of repentance, God, I pray for restoration. I pray they come back and call you their first love. Pray they go back and do the things they did at first. I pray today would be a rededication day for many. For God, when you are first, everything else finds its right place. And before we close, I just would love to just take a moment and just invite you into a moment where you get to respond. Where you get to say back to God, you're my first love. You're it. And I'm sorry where I forgot to tell you that, and I'm sorry where I've drifted, and I'm sorry I've got distracted, but today I want to let you know, God, you are. Without you, I'd have no breath in my lungs. Without you, I'd have no hope for my future. Without you, I'd have no chance of making it. God, you are my first love. So let's just, for a couple of minutes, use the last part of our time together this morning to sing a love song back to him and let him know, you're my first love.